I'm Brianna. Welcome back to my channel. Today in this video, I'm going to do a mini book review. So I plan to not spoil anything in this book. It's going to basically be the description of the book and kind of a little what it's about, and then my thoughts as spoiler free as possible. Because it is a fairly new release and it is book one of a series. Sorry, my hair is an absolute mess right now, but we're just going to continue filming anyway. So the book that I'm going to be reviewing is Kingdom of the Wicked by Kerri Maniscalco. So this is actually my third Kerri Maniscalco book. Wow, I can't pronounce her name. I did read Stalking Jack the Ripper and Hunting Prince Dracula, and I think I enjoyed them, but I didn't realize each book would have the same character going through different missions in time. So I think if I would have realized that to begin with, I would have enjoyed them a little bit more, but I plan to eventually do a read of that whole kind of series together. But this is the start of her new series, and it's pretty much, her publisher is James Patterson. So from what my sister was telling me is James Patterson actually comes up with the story idea and outlines it, and then the author that he's working with just writes the story and continues on. So this is, I guess you can say it's a young adult, but it's a borderline between young adult and new adult. And it is a enemies to lovers witch 19th century type book that takes place in Italy. But it is an English book, so you don't really see Italian. You see some Latin, but that's because some of the spells the witches use are with Latin. So this book overall, I had very, very high expectations going into it because it is super, super popular. I think there is a fan art going around of one of the characters and everyone just became obsessed with him. So I kind of just picked it up because, first of all, look at this cover. It's absolutely gorgeous. And it does have one of my favorite plot lines, as this book is based off the 7 deadly sins. And I haven't really talked about this on my channel that much because there's not really that many books that really encompass 7 deadly sins, but that to me, I just love it. I love anything Dante's Inferno, 7 deadly sins, Princes of Hell, anything that kind of talks about that stuff is really intriguing to me. And this book honestly just captured my attention right away as soon as I saw that was going to be in the plot. So I thought that was pretty cool. And so the premise of this book is it follows 2 twin sisters, Victoria, and I believe her name is Amelia with an E, but don't get mad at me if I pronounce their names wrong. And they are witches that live in 19th century, I think it's Sicily, but it's somewhere in Italy. And pretty much how they described it is there's only 14 covens of families of witches, but they're not really practicing. It runs primarily in the maternal line, although there are some males that have powers in their bloodline. And basically it kind of talks about, it kind of to me reminds me of how like the Salem witches were described, but super, super secretive. I don't know. But the primary purpose of this was that the 2 twins were in a prophecy together, and you find out later in the book what the prophecy entails and stuff like that. And then in this book, you open up the prologue is when they're 8 years old, and then the rest of the book is when they're 18. And something happens, and Victoria, who is Amelia's twin sister, doesn't come back to the restaurant, and Amelia ends up finding her dead. And they realize that there's a whole bunch of witches that are being found dead in the same way, although the humans don't know they're witches. It's a whole big process. But I thought this book was pretty good. I ended up giving it a 3.5 stars. And I know that's a little lower than what I would normally give, but I wanted to do a review for this purpose because I loved this book and this concept, but there were some things that bothered me, and I kind of wanted to discuss what some of those things were vaguely so you're not spoiled. But I am definitely going to be reading the second book, even though there were some problems in this book. I want to continue on in the series, in this world, and everything like that. So to start with, in terms of the witches, So I felt like Amelia was 18 when the rest of the book takes place, and she literally knows almost nothing about her ancestry, about magic, anything like that. The witches in this book, how they're described, they seem to take more of an elemental type of form. So a lot of their spells, it has to do with herbs or mixing a concoction or holding a certain stem of a flower. And a lot of the spells they use are summoning spells. So that's a big thing in this book. So it's not like a typical witch. So I think that's why I had to take a step back and really think about it, because you see the depiction of witch and it's like a certain image in your head that you would see in a book, but this was the complete opposite. So I didn't like how, what's the word for it? She was not trained at all. She literally knew nothing, and throughout this whole book, when she was trying to, she basically became a detective in her own right, but she had to basically bargain with people or ask people questions when she really should have known the answer. And I think that's what was frustrating. And I've seen a couple people write reviews, and this was something that frustrated them as well. And I think it's hard for me because 18 and most witch universe books is when it's like they're coming of age and where they know everything and they come into their full powers, and it wasn't really like that with her. And I don't know if that's because she was a light witch or she wasn't practicing dark magic or something like that, but there was a lot of blurred lines with that, and I think that could have been portrayed better or something like that. Or if she really was not supposed to know that much, it should have blatantly said we weren't trained, blah blah blah, something like that. There were also some like special powers that each witch that was mentioned kind of portrayed, and I think that could have went into more detail about why they see certain things instead of questioning it, because questioning it again adds to the whole thing of what are my powers exactly? I don't know. I thought it was kind of weird, and I do think maybe the grandma could have taught them better instead of, I hate to say telling them folktales and stories, but the mother didn't have, in this book, the mother didn't have any powers. It skipped her line. So I feel like the grandmother could have done something better. I have no idea. It could have also been the times. It was 19th century. They're hiding who they are because it was religious in a way. So you don't want to get burned at the stake type of deal. But that was one big complaint for me. And the other big complaint for me is Amelia is one person at the beginning and a completely different person at the end of the book. And the amount of time it took for her to change into that person was a little too quickly, but I guess grief does factor into that. But one thing that did bother me was the family element. They own a restaurant and it's been in their family for ages, and she's super close with her family, and that's all she says. But I want to say about like 150 pages into the book, she drops them completely, doesn't communicate with them, leaves at all hours of the night. And it's kind of frustrating because in other books that I've read that have this type of thing going on where the main character goes through something and they kind of don't want to tell their family, there's always some indication that they're going home or they're confiding in their parents or something like that. And Amelia never does that at all. And her grandmother is supposed to know all this stuff, and she doesn't go to her grandmother for help. And I think that, to me, it was kind of stupid, and it's something that she left out of this book, that it's such a minor detail, but I think could have really helped the book be more engaging and I guess more world building. I felt this was definitely a character heavy book. It was more about Amelia and all her adventures and stuff like that. But again, those little things I think could have changed this book entirely. Now, going on to the stuff I did enjoy. I really did enjoy that the big twist in this book was the 7 deadly sins were the princes of hell. And each prince had a certain enigma surrounding him. They each had households in hell, which I think was really cool. And I thought they had the beginning of good descriptions, and hopefully the next book will explore those houses and stuff like that, because what we learned in here was each prince had a distinct summoning spell, so the candles had to be distinct, the color jewelry were distinct, and I thought that was really interesting. And then the big twist is that the devil is one of the princes, and the whole point is you don't know who it is. So I thought that was a really, really cool little plot hole in there. Another thing I really enjoyed was the main prince in this book that she basically summons and who's guides her and who's with her is Wrath. And I thought he was described really, really well. He was a little too humanistic, but I think in a lot of these demon type books, to make them the love interest in a way, they have to be like that. So I kind of gave leeway to that aspect, but I really, really enjoyed just how he was described, how each prince, you can see them visually because they all looked different, but they shared some traits about them. And I did like that you were able to see Rat's power and how she described it and stuff like that. So I thought she did a really good job kind of embolizing each of the 7 deadly sins in a person and trying to figure that out. But I really, really did enjoy this, even though, like I said, I had some plot holes. Hi, Xana. My dog just walked in. There were some plot holes, but I did enjoy this, and I can't wait for the second book. Also, a disclaimer, there is a cliffhanger ending, and this ending of this book reminds me of A Court of Mist and Fury. And if you've read the ending of that book, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about with this one after you read it. But I did enjoy it, and I thought this actually was a little bit better than the Stalking Jack the Ripper book that I read from her, and I thought that her character building was better, and hopefully her world building will get even better in the second book, but again, we shall see. Also, what I thought was really pretty is you get a map of the households in here, if you can kind of see it. And this is the Barnes & Noble exclusive edition. I know the Fairy Loot or Fairy Crate, one of those subscription services, has this book, and I think it has the sprayed edges. But again, this book was super, super good. If you were looking for a detailed but quick read, I definitely recommend this. Again, it wasn't the greatest with witch description, but if you like demons, enemies to lovers, stuff like that, then I definitely would pick this one up. Again, don't be discouraged because I gave it a 3.5. That's still a pretty good rating for me. So yeah, definitely check this one out, and I will definitely be reading the sequel to this when it comes out next year. Thank you guys for watching this video, and I hope you enjoyed my little book review. And it's definitely not spoilery at all. I tried to leave out a lot of the main characters and stuff that happens. So hopefully you guys will go into it spoiler free. And yeah, I hope you guys have a great day. Thank you for watching this video. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in my next one. Bye!